to I Will Be Okay Thursday. For this week's video, I'm going to be talking about female rivalry and why women shouldn't compete against each other. So first I want to talk about my own experiences with female competition, and one of my first and most vivid memories of female competition was when I was 14 years old. I got a new haircut, I started taking a little bit better care of myself, and the popular girls in my school, I know it was them, made a MySpace about how ugly I was. So it was really weird because literally the MySpace was myspace.com/TashaIsUgly, which Tasha is my nickname, and they edited and photoshopped photos of me where they put more acne on my face than I already had at the time, and they put Tasha is ugly all over the MySpace. Just wrote Tasha is ugly, my name is Tasha and I'm ugly. And I remember finding that, and I'm really grateful that even at the time I was jealous. These girls are jealous. And looking back on it, you're yeah, duh. Then I went into high school, and before people really even knew me, when I was a virgin, people were spreading rumors about how I was a whore and I was a slut. I only at that point had only made out with people, so it was a complete lie. And then people were also spreading rumors that I was a bitch, just because, if people feel like you are a threat, then they try to bring you down. Now, personally, I have felt as well the need to compete with other women. When I was younger, it was definitely this feeling of competing for who was the prettiest, who had the best outfit, who had the best makeup. As I got older, I noticed that if I was dating a guy and then I was gonna bring him around a female friend, which I thought was really pretty, I would get these feelings of feeling insecure. I'd be oh my gosh, what if he sees this girl and she's so pretty and he leaves me for her, Now part of that is because I've been cheated on a lot, so I think I get that fear. But what's really funny is that the people that these exes who cheated on me with were never girls I ever would have guessed that they were cheating on me with. As I've gotten older, I've been able to process that feeling a little bit more, and also by doing research on what that phenomena actually is, and by understanding within myself what it feels like and how I can overcome it, has been really helpful. And I've noticed that there are some women that never overcome it. They're 50, 60 years old and they're still, competing with other women. And it's really sad, and to be honest, it's really ugly. But I think that maybe by making this video, I can help open a woman's eyes to what is actually happening psychologically and to really break down this phenomena. So people would generally say that they think that men are more competitive than women, but that's not true. Men and women are equally as competitive, but men are taught that it's okay for them to overtly be competitive, and women are taught to be covertly competitive. Men and women are equally as aggressive and equally as competitive. We just show it in different ways because that's what we're taught. Women are taught to be nice, we're taught to be gentle. Men aren't taught that, and so we still have this aggression, we still have these competitive feelings, and so they come out in really often twisted ways. So David Buss has done a lot of research on this topic, and he basically says that when men compete, they show off their physical abilities and their social status, and women show off their youth and physical attractiveness. David Buss also noted that there are two main tactics in competition between the same sex, and it tends to be through self-promotion and degradation of rivals. So for example, when I was in high school, being slut-shamed was degrading of me being a rival to these girls, and making a MySpace about how ugly I was again degradation of rivals. And self-promotion is how, you present yourself to people, like this pressure feeling of like having to look the best or perfect. Self-promotion can also be how you speak to the supposed prized possession, by making yourself like look better than you may actually be. So I want to break down different psychological theories as to why this phenomena happens. So I'm going to talk about evolutionary psychological views, feminist psychology, and kind of like spiritual psychology, I guess I'll call it. So let's start with evolutionary psychology. So a man named Noam Spencer is an evolutionary psychologist, and he has done extensive research from the view of basically evolutionary and reproductive psychology. The reason why men and women compete against each other is that they're basically competing for the most suitable mate. There was a study done in 2004 which recorded women who were like at their most fertile stages in life and the less fertile stages in life, and they were shown pictures of other women, and at the lower fertile stages in life, the women scored the attractiveness of other women as higher, and then the women who were at higher fertile stages in life scored the women as less attractive. And so they think that when women are more fertile, the more competitive they are against other women. According to that same study, they found that highly fertile women were also found to gossip more about other women. Now back to David Buss again. He said that a more attractive woman will receive more hostility throughout her lifetime and less cooperation from other women because her presence is seemingly a threat to the evolutionary prize. Now, personally, the evolutionary view of this phenomena to me is a bit reductive because, yes, I think it makes sense, but I think that there's so much more to this. So now I want to talk about the feminist psychological view. So if you aren't familiar with the term the male gaze, what it basically means is that a woman perceives herself primarily as a sexual object. A woman primarily sees herself in the eyes of a man and appealing to that image that a man would find pleasing. Feminist psychology basically argues that women have internalized the patriarchal establishment, and we've been taught to turn against each other in order to fight for men's appreciation and attention. I personally think that the internalized patriarchy also teaches women to fight against each other and compete against each other so that we can get some sense of power over others, because fighting against men for power, I think, makes us feel hopeless because, well, we live in a man's world, and to fight against other women, I think, makes women feel like, well, maybe I do have a chance of having some kind of power, even if it's just over other women, because actually achieving some kind of power over a man is incredibly difficult in our world. There is a sense of power that we feel when you feel like you're prettier than the girl next to you, like you're getting more attention than everybody else in the room. Of course, I mean, on some level, I think we can all admit that that might kind of feel good. But the truth of the matter is that if you are competing against other women for the spotlight in the eyes of a man, well, you're probably competing for the wrong person. Let me talk a little bit about this kind of spiritual psychology that I wanted to talk about, which is my own take on what happens when we compete against each other. And I think it's all very much rooted in insecurity. Really, what I think that we compete for is love, appreciation, and attention that we don't give to ourselves. And I think that at root, we compete for a source of that when that source of love is not coming from ourselves. And I think that we can get really attached to people with whom we believe is that only source of love. I think that when we don't appreciate ourselves, when we don't love ourselves, when we don't give ourselves the attention that we need, we will fight for it because it is a normal human need. If we feel like we have to control things externally around us in order to get what we want, then there isn't enough confidence in ourselves internally. If at any point you feel like you have to compete for a man, then honey, you're competing for the wrong person. The right person is not somebody you'll ever have to compete for. I still believe that wholeheartedly, even though I haven't met anybody yet. If you don't feel like you are the dominant force in your universe, then you're gonna feel really insecure around other people who maybe do embody this kind of power that we all should embody within ourselves. So I want to read this really great quote to you that I found last year, and it's written by Anselma Olio, and she says, "If we women are ever to pull ourselves out of the morass of self-pity, self-destruction, and impotence which has been our heritage for so long as we can remember, then it is perhaps even more important that we be supportive of each other's achievements and successes and strengths than it is for us to be compassionate and understanding of each other's failures and weaknesses." So now, why shouldn't women compete against one another? I'll tell you from my own experience, when I stopped feeling like I had to look the best, I had to be the best, and I saw other women as companions and as people that I love and that I want to lift up, it completely radicalized my female relationships, and it completely changed my life, to be honest. Competing against other women keeps the patriarchy very much in place. Because if you can imagine if all women came together, what would happen? It's helpful to remind yourself that everybody has their own flavor. Everybody likes something different. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Everybody likes different people, and it really never means anything about you personally, but about that person. I had a friend in the past whom, if we would go out together and other people, or like me or other friends, would get hit on but she wouldn't, she would get really jealous and she would feel like, well, why aren't people hitting on me? And it's like, well, everybody has different tastes, you know, everybody feels differently, and just because it's not like your day or your person doesn't mean that somebody else might like you just as much or even more. Now it's a little bit more difficult because now we have this whole other added dimension of social media, which, I mean, I guess I kind of grew up with MySpace, but now there's, you know, obviously Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, people posting beautiful photos and they get like thousands of likes and they have thousands of followers, and you think like, oh, like, why don't I get more likes? Am I not pretty? You know, like all this stuff, and it's like, you don't know what that person did to get those followers. You don't know what that person did to get all those likes. Who is liking it, and does it matter who is liking it? Because like I said, the right people are gonna like your stuff. The right people are gonna follow you. The right people are going to recognize your own individual beauty, and you should have faith in that and confidence in that. And let other people shine. It's okay. It doesn't dim your shine. There's a really great quote that says, "The presence of another woman's beauty is not an absence of your own," and I try to remind myself of that as well. One of my favorite philosophers' name is Lao Tzu, who also wrote the Tao Te Ching, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And in that book, he writes, "All streams flow to the sea because it is lower than they are. Humility gives it its power. If you want to govern the people, you must place yourself below them. The master is above the people, and no one feels oppressed. She goes ahead of the people, and no one feels manipulated. The whole world is grateful to her. Because she competes with no one can compete with her." So next time you feel like you want to compete with another woman, ask yourself, what are you actually competing for? And is it worth it for you to tear her down and make yourself feel better? Because to be honest, every time I kind of notice when people are like trying really hard to look better than somebody else, it looks ridiculous. Like you can kind of see where you're like, what's going on? So really working on yourself and really learning to cultivate confidence is so much more beautiful, and you're gonna attract the right people. So why not appreciate other women? I'm not saying that you have to always like other women, because there are absolutely women who suck, but I am saying that instead of being cruel to other women just to make yourself feel better, maybe check yourself before you continue to do that. Alright guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That is the end of this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you next week.